Good morning. It's 7:15. NewsTalk 99.7 WNTK, WNTK.com, NewsTalk 98.9 and 1490 WUVR. John Harper, Jim MacKay, the WNTK Morning Show. Of course, it is presidential primary season. Whenever that date will be in New Hampshire, that's still the big question mark. We've seen a number of candidates come through the Granite State. One of those candidates who is gaining traction not only in the polls here in New Hampshire but nationwide is former Utah Governor Jon Huntsman, also the former ambassador to China. And Governor Huntsman joins us this morning. Governor, good morning. Welcome to New Hampshire. Welcome to WNTK.
John, it's a great pleasure to be with you. Thanks for giving me a little bit of time.
Glad to speak with you. Let's talk about this primary craziness that's going on right now. Secretary of State Bill Gardner, our Secretary of State, promises that New Hampshire will have the first in the nation primary. What's going on behind the scenes in the Republican Party with this jockeying to be first?
You know, it's states trying to position themselves based on wanting to get ahead in the game, whatever that might be, a little more recognition, more opportunities for economic development, more time in the spotlight, whatever it might be. But it completely upends a very traditional primary schedule that this nation has had for a very long time. A schedule that works well for the people, a schedule that works well for the candidates. Has been a great political tradition in this country. And I fear that the more that we have this arms race, people leapfrogging, trying to get ahead schedule-wise, the more people are going to say, just forget it. Let's just wipe out the whole system. Eventually you shuffle it so far out there where we become constant campaigners. You never stop campaigning for the presidency. And that's probably movement in the wrong direction. We probably ought to be truncating or somehow shortening the campaign season. But, we ought to be getting back to New Hampshire as a first primary. Let's leave New Hampshire as a first primary state. It's been a great tradition. It's served our nation well, and it's been good for the people of New Hampshire too.
Governor Jon Huntsman, our guest. If you would like to ask the governor a question, 888-299-3151 on WNTK WUVR. Governor, both you and Rick Santorum are pointing a couple of fingers at Mitt Romney about some of these date changes. Tell me more about that.
Well, I don't think it's fair for a candidate to be meddling in the affairs of a state looking to put the primary schedule forward. I don't think that's right. And from word coming out of Nevada, Governor Romney or his team have been involved in moving that primary forward for political purposes, obviously. I think it's completely inappropriate. I don't like the idea that people are moving the schedules forward, but when you've got candidates who are behind some of the effort, I think it's doubly bad.
Governor Jon Huntsman, our guest here on WNTK and WUVR. 718, sunny today, 63. Right now we're at 32. We'll talk about jobs, the economy, and foreign policy. But first, Governor Brian is on the line from Grafton. Brian, good morning. You're on WNTK and on with Governor Jon Huntsman.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call. Mr. Huntsman, I understand you're a proponent of man-made global warming. If you're elected president, will you use the legal method of introducing a new tax to the federal government by doing a constitutional amendment process, which would allow, normal citizens to actually vote on the issue, or will you do it in the typical bipartisan way of slamming a new tax for the struggling American people?
Well, I don't know what you're talking about in terms of taxes. I'm not. If you look at my tax program, I'm looking at major tax reform. When you talk about global warming, I've come out basically saying that I embrace mainstream science. I think mainstream science, when you've got a body of knowledge to make decisions on, is probably something that is worth looking at. I don't have any specific approaches to dealing with the emissions problem, other than to say technology innovation is going to take us to a much cleaner tomorrow. And my energy independence program, which calls for a lot more use of natural gas, for example, as opposed to this heroin-like addiction to imported oil, 60% so. Natural gas use in transportation and in manufacturing and electricity, I think would be a very, very good thing for our economy. I think it'd be good for the air. I think it has very important national security implications. But finally, let's also recognize that when it comes to the international implications of emissions, when you've got other countries like China and India that are looking at different solutions, different benchmarkings, different ways of looking at the science, we can't unilaterally disarm. I'm not going to impose a tax. or some sort of penalty on our own manufacturers and job creators at a time when we can ill afford it, particularly when you've got other countries who are the largest emitters in the world, and they're not going to do anything about it.
Brian, thanks for your question. 7:20 with Governor Jon Huntsman, who is starting a 6-day campaign run here in New Hampshire. He will be at Colby-Sawyer College at 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoon at the Ware Center, of course, participating in the debate at Dartmouth College coming up on October 11th. Governor, as the ambassador to China among the Republicans, you're the only one with foreign policy experience. We hear very often that the United States has ceded some of its stature in the world during the last 3 years under an Obama administration. Have we done that? How much have we lost? How do you make it back up?
Well, you make it back up by recognizing the reality of a marketplace in flux. By that I mean in China, which has been the fastest growing economy for the last many years at 8, 9, 10% for practically 30 years running. They've got a large population. They have natural resource base. They've got secure trade links with the rest of the world. I mean, for every reason, like Brazil, for example. They're going to grow fairly quickly. But there is trouble on the horizon. There's trouble economically with inflation that is creeping up, endemic inflation. Trouble on their periphery. They've got some island dispute issues, particularly in the South China Sea, that is of great concern to the neighborhood. And that's going to, I think, cause some real doubts on the part of the manufacturing investment community who have gone to China for cost purposes mainly. If we in this country do what at least I've recommended on the tax reform side, which is quite similar to what I did as governor on tax reform. You phase out the loopholes and the deductions, you lower the rate, you broaden the base, and you simplify, both on the individual side and on the corporate side. If we can do that, if we can recognize the regulatory barriers that stand in the way of companies investing and hiring people, they're just sitting on cash right now. They're sitting on new innovations because they have no idea what healthcare costs are going to be in the future. They have no idea what the regulations are going to be or what tax policy will be. We need to provide that certainty. And third, if we can move toward greater energy independence, which we all know our nation can do, I mean, it's the lowest of low-hanging fruit in terms of being a job creator. I can tell you, coming from manufacturing myself, that the manufacturing dollar will come to the United States of America, and we can recoup and regain our lost manufacturing muscle. We can do it. We must do it. We are in a perfect position in terms of these cycles of economic history to be able to win some of that back, and with it, create the jobs. Of course, we're going to need job training to prepare people for those jobs going forward. But we can win it back, and I think it would be a very, very important thing, not only for the people in the state of New Hampshire, where we can begin to fill up some of those the old buildings that lost manufacturing jobs a generation ago, begin winning some of that back. It's completely up to us, and it's completely up to our nation's leadership to get it done.
Governor Jon Huntsman, our guest on WNTK and WUVR. Governor, you have seen the Occupy Wall Street, now Occupy America, as these demonstrations move across the country. We've had some here in New Hampshire as recently as last night, and another one coming up in Vermont this weekend. I just got an email from a WNTK listener with a header that says, "Look at these nuts." Don't know that they are nuts because there are some legitimate concerns that we hear these people talking about, legitimate concerns about how taxpayer money has bailed out the banks and Wall Street, and they've continued to write checks to themselves. Are these people nuts, or are they onto something, and how do you harness that energy and get some solutions going?
Yeah. Last time I looked, this is kind of an American tradition to express your opinion. We have freedom of speech. We have the ability to petition our government. I've lived the last couple of years over in China where this isn't allowed. And when you reflect on what is happening here from 10,000 miles away, all I can say is thank goodness for a country that allows people to speak out on issues about which they feel strongly. I think that is part of who we are. It's part of the fabric of America. May it always be, so long as people are law-abiding and in accordance with the law of the land. If they have gripes and grievances, and heaven knows we have plenty of things to have gripes and grievances about today, they should be able to get out and express it.
That's true, but how do you heal this anger that's going on in the country, the anger that we see in Washington, the divide not only between Republicans and Democrats, but the divide even within the Republican Party?
The divide is healed through one simple approach, and that is a pathway that allows us to create jobs. When you have 15 million of our fellow Americans who have no dignity in the workplace, when you have millions more beyond them who've completely given up because, the job search has been completely hopeless. They're dispirited. You've got moms, you've got dads, you've got families that have been shipwrecked because they don't have the dignity of a job. They can't make ends meet. And so it's therefore no surprise, when I visited a local sheriff in New Hampshire recently, when they've got deputies who are delivering eviction notices. They say, substance abuse rates are up, spousal abuse rates are up, suicide rates are up. Everything is up because we lack the dignity of jobs in our communities right now. We need more of them. If we didn't have 9, 10, 11, 12% unemployment in our states and nationally, if we had that moving down and more jobs being created because there was a sense of confidence in the marketplace, businesses reinvesting and deploying capital expenditures and hiring, we would have a much different outlook on life. We'd have opportunities. We'd have greater dignity through jobs that we could share with people. And that would go a long way, I am convinced, in healing this divide that now stands in our country in ways that I haven't seen during my lifetime.
Governor, does President Obama's jobs bill make any sense?
It is too little and too insignificant to do what needs to be done. When you have monumental challenges on the debt side, on the growth side, in terms of our place in the world, you need monumental solutions. So we have monumental problems, but we have these little incremental half-step solutions. That's not going to do it. I mean, you're looking at Band-Aids, you're looking at partial fixes, a little stimulus here, a little foo-foo dust there. That's not going to do it. You've got to reach into the underlying structural problems, that which has created a lot of the mess that we're in, that which continues to make it very difficult for businesses to get back on their feet and for capital to flow to small businesses. That's what you need to correct, and you'll get right down to the bottom line, which will be taxes and the regulatory environment, which makes it completely unpredictable, if not impossible, for capital to flow to small businesses from banks these days, and energy independence. My first day as president, I would drop on the doorstep of Congress those three initiatives, and I would say, it isn't rocket science, folks. A lot of governors do it in their states, as I did. We can get taxes done. We can get regulation reform done in ways that will make the marketplace a little more predictable, transparent and consistent, and we can move on with energy independence. And just the very talk of those pro-growth measures guaranteed would get this country thinking a little differently about itself and get the marketplace moving.
Former Utah Governor Jon Huntsman, Republican candidate for president, our guest, 728 on WNTK WUVR. Sunny today, 63. Indian summer over the weekend in the 70s and the 80s. The governor will be at a town hall meeting open to everyone, 3 o'clock Sunday afternoon in the Ware Campus Center at Colby-Sawyer College. Governor, you're a member of the Church of Latter-day Saints. You're Mormon. Governor Romney is Mormon. Some polls show that 20% of Americans remain unwilling to vote for someone who is Mormon. How do we get over some of these religious biases that people have in the United States of America?
I think that's a carryover from the old days. I married a beautiful young lady from the South who was raised Episcopalian. My kids went to Catholic schools. I have 2 little adopted kids, one from China, one from India, who come from different traditions. And I say in this country, it's about time we all pull together as Americans, regardless of religion, regardless of our backgrounds, regardless of our points of origin. It's time that we pull together and recognize that this divide must go, that we all share a common citizenship, and we all want the very best for the next generation. And I think the debate around 2012 will be so laser-like focused on economic recovery and jobs. I'm not sure that people are going to have a whole lot of time to sit back and say, all right, what religious denomination is this person? He's got a great jobs plan, he's got a great background and track record in terms of being able to do what needs to be done so desperately in this country, but I'm not quite sure that I like the tradition religiously that he comes from.
Sure.
I'm just not sure that is going to be a salient factor in people's decisions this go around.
In this day and age of labels, Governor, and you're either over here or you're over here, you're black or white, there's no middle ground. You're a rational guy, a moderate Republican. Does that make you more or less electable?
Well, I think when people look at your record, a record of actually doing stuff, getting important things accomplished, when you're governor, you're a doer. You've got to create a vision. You've got to implement on that vision. And when they look at what I have done, I think they'll come to the conclusion that he's a pretty mainstream conservative problem-solving guy. You come from a pro-life background. I've always been pro-life. I don't flip one way and the other depending upon my election. I'm pro-Second Amendment. I am pro-growth. I delivered the largest tax cut our state has ever seen. We brought about the second voucher bill for education anywhere in the country. We created health care reform. It took us 3 years, but we got it done in our state without the costly mandate, for example, that Massachusetts has. So when people start looking at the record, those labels begin to fade just a little bit. But I've come to find in politics that everybody has a label, whether you like it or not. And I guess if you're the kind of person who doesn't lock people out of your office when you make decisions, somehow you're a moderate. I bring people in. I sit them around the table. I listen to all voices before I make a decision. I don't lock people out. I'm an inclusive kind of leader, and I always have been. But labels will be labels, but gladly people are willing to look beyond that, and they're willing to look at the record, which you've actually done, and then people are going to come to find that where I've come from, what I've done, is perfectly in line with what this nation so desperately needs.
You got a key endorsement from the New Hampshire Veterans of Foreign Wars, Paul Lloyd, who's the state commander, and that organization backing you because of your foreign policy experience. If we could do one more question on foreign policy. We were speaking with our correspondent in Jerusalem this morning who said when Governor Huntsman's on, ask him about his views on Hezbollah. They call the shots in Lebanon. They control the army. We as the United States woo the army, so we give to the army. So thus we're giving to Hezbollah. We're giving to the terrorists. How do you reconcile that in our foreign policy in the United States?
I don't think any American would accept the premise that we're giving money to terrorist organizations. And if that were the case, then that ought to be carefully reviewed and looked at. The whole Iran connection with Syria and the extent to which the pipeline of funding and arms are coming through Syria and through Lebanon and jeopardizing the safety, security, and well-being of Israel is a serious, serious issue. And I would call Iran the most transcendent issue in the world right now as they develop more and more fissile material and, I believe, seek to develop a nuclear weapon. This is going to change the balance of power in the Middle East. And it's not just what they're doing, but it's what they're doing through their links through Hamas and Hezbollah that is terribly destabilizing in the region. It's a metastasizing cancer. And we should monitor it very, very closely and enact policies that would disrupt that pipeline of funding and arms.
Governor, thanks so much for your time. Governor Jon Huntsman, the former governor of Utah and ambassador to China, at Colby-Sawyer College in a town hall meeting, 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoon, of course, in the debate at Dartmouth College on October 11th. Yeah, very generous with your time, Governor. Thank you. Look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks for being on WNTK.
Thank you so much. Take care.